It was one of those days where everything felt like routine until it didn't. My name's Carol, and running a hotel pretty much sums up my life. The hustle of check-ins and check-outs never ends, and you gotta be ready for anything, especially complaints. So, there I was at the front desk, when this guy comes storming over. He looked like money from head to toe, fancy suit, slicked back hair, the works. He slammed his fancy phone down on the counter and glared at me like I was the one who messed up his room. "Hey, the state of my room is unacceptable. Who's responsible for this?" he snapped, his voice crisp. I put on my best customer service smile, trying to smooth over the rough start. "I'm really sorry about that. I'm Carol, the manager. Let me fix this for you right away." He huffed, eyeing me with suspicion. "I hope so." I was about to call the owner. "What's your name again?" "Carol," I repeated, keeping my tone even. "Let's sort this out. How about I upgrade you to one of our best rooms? On the house, to make up for the inconvenience." As we walked to the new room, I noticed his gaze softening. "Sorry for blowing up like that," he said, scratching the back of his neck. "Name's James. I've been on the road for weeks, and it's wearing me down." "No worries, James. We all have those days. Let's just make sure the rest of your stay is pleasant," I said, opening the door to a top-tier room. He peered inside and his face lit up. "This will do nicely, thanks." Seeing him calm down gave me a little relief. We started chatting as I filled out some paperwork. Turned out, he was a cryptocurrency investor, traveling around to enjoy the fruits of his smart choices. "It's not all it's cracked up to be," he confessed. "Gets lonely, you know?" "I can imagine," I said, handing him his new room keys. "But hey, you get to meet new people all the time, right?" He chuckled. "Yeah, like fiery hotel managers who know how to handle an irate guest." I laughed. Part of the charm of the job. Before he headed to his room, he paused. "Hey, Carol, would you like to grab dinner later? I owe you one for handling my tantrum." I was a bit taken aback, didn't see that coming. But he seemed genuine. "Sure, James. That'd be nice." And that's how I ended up at dinner with a guest from my hotel, talking about everything from crypto to favorite pizza toppings. He was easy to talk to, laughed a lot, and didn't mind when I ranted a bit about my hectic day-to-days. After our unexpected dinner, James and I started seeing more of each other. It wasn't like any of those cheesy love stories, it was more real, more raw. We'd meet up after my shifts at the hotel, sometimes grabbing a late-night bite or just walking and talking until the early hours. One evening, we were at this little dive bar, the kind where everyone knows your name and the beer's always cold. We were tucked away in a corner booth, the noise of the bar a dull background hum to our conversation. James was picking at the label on his beer bottle, something he did when something was on his mind. "You know, Carol, I've traveled a lot, seen a lot of places, but it's kinda lonely, this road life." "Yeah?" I took a sip from my drink, watching him closely. "Why keep at it then? Why not settle down or something?" He laughed, a short, dry sound. "Settle down? And do what? Invest in real estate, get a dog, and mow the lawn on Sundays? That's not me." I chuckled, shaking my head. "Doesn't have to be that boring, you know." "But I get it. Freedom's hard to give up." We fell into a comfortable silence, just listening to the buzz around us. Then, without even realizing it, I started talking about my own life, more than I'd ever shared with anyone in a long time. "You know, after my folks died, it was just me and my little sister, Anna. Had to grow up fast, take care of both of us. I put everything on hold, her schooling, her life, it all depended on me." James turned to me, his expression serious. "That's heavy, Carol. Must have been tough, being thrown all that responsibility." "Yeah, it was hell. But what do you do, right? You play the hand you're dealt." I shrugged, trying to keep the mood from dipping too low. "But you've done well for yourself, managing a hotel and all." He was trying to lighten the mood, I could tell. I laughed, a genuine laugh this time. Yeah, I guess. Managing the hotel, handling the bills, and making sure Anna got a more or less normal life. He leaned in, his eyes intent. You're remarkable, you know that? Stop it, I swatted his arm playfully, but inside, his words warmed me, made me feel seen. So, what about you? You ever think about family? I asked, turning the tables on him. James shifted uncomfortably. Ah, family. That's a tricky one. Let's just say my folks and I don't see eye to eye. They have their empire, and I have my road. An empire, huh? I teased, bumping his shoulder with mine. Sounds fancy. He gave a rueful smile. Not as fancy as it sounds. More like a lot of expectations and golden handcuffs. We spent hours just talking that night. It was as if opening up to each other broke down some walls. I didn't notice the time until the bartender started putting chairs up on the tables. Things with James had been going surprisingly smooth. We'd spent weeks together. But he'd always kept a bit of distance when it came to serious stuff, like where this was all going. That is, until one evening when everything changed. I had invited James over to my place for dinner. It was the first time he'd seen where I lived, apart from picking me up for dates. He walked around my apartment, taking it all in. This is nice, really nice, Carol. Didn't figure you for living somewhere like this, he said, genuinely surprised. I laughed, spreading my arms wide. What, you thought I lived in a shack or something? After my parents passed, they left us pretty well off. Sold their house, bought an apartment for Anna, and I made the first payment on the mortgage. And this place is mine. James nodded, impressed. You've done well for yourself. Really well. The evening went on, and after dinner, we sat on the couch, a bottle of wine between us. That's when he dropped the bombshell. Carol, I've been thinking a lot lately about us. I raised an eyebrow, my heart starting to race. Oh yeah? And what have you been thinking? He took my hand, his eyes locking on mine. I love you, Carol. I know I said I wasn't looking to settle down, but with you, it's different. I can't imagine being anywhere else but here. With you. The words hit me like a tidal wave. Just weeks ago, he was Mr. Non-Commitment, and now this? But looking into his eyes, I saw something genuine. Are you serious, James? This isn't you just being caught up in the moment? He shook his head, squeezing my hand. I've never been more serious about anything. Carol, will you marry me? The question hung in the air, thick and heavy. My mind raced, but my heart was already answering before I could think twice. Yes. Yes, I'll marry you. And just like that, we were engaged. A couple of weeks later, James gave me a beautiful ring, simple, but elegant. It felt surreal, like stepping into a dream I didn't want to wake up from. James started talking about the wedding almost immediately. You deserve something spectacular, Carol. Let's throw a wedding that no one will forget, he said one evening as we looked over budgets and venues. I was hesitant when he proposed the financial plan. I was thinking, since I've got the contacts, I'll organize everything. You just provide the funds, say, $50,000? I'll cover the honeymoon in the most luxurious hotel in the world, and then we'll get a house together. The amount made me pause. It was a lot, most of what I had. But looking at him, filled with excitement, made me push my doubts aside. Okay, if you think that's best. I trust you, James. I transferred the money into his account, and he took over the planning. As I watched him throw himself into the arrangements, my heart swelled. Here was a man who had walked into my life unexpectedly, but now felt like he'd always been a part of it. I went to bed each night with a smile, thinking about how lucky I was, how perfect everything was turning out. As the wedding plans were picking up steam, I figured it was time James met my sister, Anna. She was the only family I had left, and her opinion mattered to me, even if she could be a handful sometimes. We decided to meet up at the local diner where Anna worked as a waitress. The bell jingled as we walked in, and Anna spotted us right away, her face lighting up. "Hey, sis." Anna waved us over, then her eyes slid over to James. "And you must be the famous fiancé. I've heard loads about you." James flashed his $1,000,000 smile, stepping forward to shake her hand. "And you must be the beautiful sister I've been told so much about. You two could be twins." I rolled my eyes, feeling a mix of pride and annoyance. Okay, cut it out with the charm, mister." Anna laughed, but then leaned in with a mischievous glint in her eye. "So, James, are you as rich as they say? My sister sure knows how to pick 'em." "Anna," I hissed, embarrassed. She always knew how to push my buttons. James just chuckled, taking it in stride. "Well, I'd done all right for myself, but Carol's right, it's not about the money. It's love that really counts." Anna raised an eyebrow, looking impressed. "Smooth talker, huh? I like him." Over the next few weeks, James proved to be the perfect gentleman. He was charming, attentive, and never made me feel like he was anything but utterly devoted to me. He didn't even bat an eye at Anna's flirtatious antics, which was a relief. One day, in the midst of all the wedding chaos, my best friend Liz and I went to a bridal salon to pick out my wedding dress. The place was draped in silk and satin, a bridal heaven. As I was being zipped into one of the gowns, I heard a familiar laugh from the next booth. Curious, I poked my head around the curtain, and there was Anna, twirling in front of a mirror in a wedding dress. "Anna, what in the world are you doing in a wedding dress?" I asked, my voice echoing my bewilderment. She stopped twirling and gave me a crooked smile. "Oh, just trying some stuff on. You know, for fun." Liz, who'd come around to see what the fuss was about, chuckled. "Looks like someone's caught the wedding bug." Anna's laugh was stiff, not quite reaching her eyes. "Yeah, something like that. Let's just say I might need one sooner than you think." "What? Are you serious? Is there something you need to tell me?" I pressed, half amused, half concerned. "Just let it be a surprise," Anna said, her tone light but evasive. We all laughed it off, thinking she was just being her usual dramatic self. I turned back to my own reflection, the image of Anna in that wedding dress lingering in my mind, but I brushed it aside, focusing on my own big day. That day was like any other until it wasn't. James had left in a hurry after breakfast, mumbling about some meeting he couldn't miss. He forgot his phone on the coffee table, and it started buzzing like crazy just minutes after he dashed out. Curiosity got the better of me. I thought it might be something urgent about the wedding or his work. "Probably just his buddy checking in," I muttered to myself as I picked up the phone. There was no password, James never bothered with one. That alone should have tipped me off that he wasn't as cautious, or as clever, as he liked to think. The screen lit up to a storm of messages, all from the same contact, Anna Banana. My heart sank a bit. Why is he texting Anna so much? I opened the messages, telling myself I was just being paranoid. But the words I read burned through the screen. "I can't wait to be with you forever," Anna had written. "Forget Carol, it's you I want standing with me." And James, the man I was about to marry, replied, "Soon, love. We just need to play along a little longer." She's so clueless, it's almost funny. I scrolled through more messages, each one a stab in the heart. They talked about the wedding, about me, about how they'd use my money to start their life together, once I was out of the picture. But the most disgusting thing is that Anna was pregnant by James. The room spun around me. I felt sick. My sister, my baby sister, who I'd practically raised on my own, was stabbing me in the back. And James, the man who'd promised to love and protect me, was the knife in her hand. An hour later, James came back, looking flustered. "Hey, babe, seen my phone?" he asked, kissing my cheek like nothing was amiss. I handed it over with a smile plastered on my face, the same one I'd worn 1,000 times before. "You left it here," I said sweetly. "Must be losing your touch, leaving your lifeline around." As he scrolled through his phone, presumably checking for missed messages, I watched him closely. Does he have any idea that I know? Does he even care? But James was oblivious, caught up in his own deceitful world. He laughed at something on his screen, and I felt my hands clench into fists. Laugh it up, James. Enjoy it while it lasts. Later that night, as we lay in bed, he was all smiles and plans for the future, our future. It's going to be perfect, Carol. This wedding, our life together. You'll see. I turned to face him, my heart a battleground of love and loathing. I'm sure it will be, I murmured, letting him pull me close. Absolutely perfect. As he drifted off, I lay awake, staring at the ceiling. The gears in my mind were turning, plotting, planning. I wasn't going to be the victim in this twisted play. They wanted a show? I'd give them one they'd never forget. But first, I had to act the part of the doting fiancé, just a little longer. The day of the wedding had arrived, and with it, a performance worthy of an award. The grand hall was filled with flowers, and our guests whispered excitedly, none the wiser of the drama about to unfold. Just as we were about to exchange vows, the doors at the back of the hall burst open. Anna, in a wedding dress, marched up the aisle like she owned the place. The crowd gasped, turning to watch her approach. She didn't stop until she reached us, pushing me aside with a dramatic flair. I'm the one who deserves to be here, Carol. Not you. I'm having his baby, she declared loudly, turning to James. Tell her, tell everyone. James let go of my hand and laughed, an ugly sound that echoed off the walls. Thank you, Carol, for this lavish wedding setup. It's perfect, for me and your sister. The guests murmured, shock written on every face. James continued. Why don't you take a seat, Carol? Enjoy the show as a guest. His words were meant to wound, but I simply smiled, stepping back gracefully. Of course, I wouldn't miss it for the world, I said, my voice calm and even. Their smug smiles faltered, confusion flickering as I walked away without a scene. I took a seat, crossing my legs and fixing my gaze on the farce unfolding before me. As they turned to face the priest and made their own vows, another dramatic entrance halted everything once more. A woman, clearly older and carrying an air of fury like a storm, marched down the aisle. James, she bellowed, making him pale. You lying, cheating scumbag. The whole room froze. James's fake smile slipped, revealing a hint of the panic he felt as the woman stood before us all. I am his wife, and mother to his child, which he has conveniently forgotten along with the vows he made to me. Anna's face drained of color, her legs nearly giving out beneath her. She looked from James to the woman, then to me, a silent plea for help. I also have a little gift for everyone, I said, standing up. My voice carried clearly, every word enunciated with cold precision. James isn't just a bigamist. He's broke. A private detective confirmed he's drowning in debt, his investments failed, and worst of all, he's been stealing from his own family. The crowd erupted in whispers, the delicious sound of gossip and scandal mingling in the air. James's wife turned on Anna. And you? How dare you? She advanced on my sister, who stumbled back, tears streaming down her face. I watched, a bittersweet satisfaction settling in my chest. This was the culmination of weeks of pain and planning. Seeing them unravel, watching as their worlds crumbled, was a vindication, yet it left a hollow ache deep inside. The real wife's accusations continued, her voice sharp and unforgiving. He's left us nothing, and you think he'd build something with you? Wake up, girl. Anna sobbed, her dream wedding turning into a nightmare. James attempted to speak, to salvage some shred of dignity, but his wife slapped him hard across the face, the sound a sharp crack that echoed through the hall. Just as the guests began to process the shocking revelations, another pair of uninvited guests stormed through the doors, James's parents. The elderly couple looked every bit the part of disgruntled aristocracy, their faces etched with disbelief and anger as they took in the scene before them. The father, a stern-looking man with a sharp suit, was the first to speak, his voice booming over the murmurs of the crowd. I am utterly ashamed of you, James. To think you could descend to such deceit, he bellowed, his gaze piercing his son as if trying to incite remorse with his words alone. His mother, a fragile-looking woman with tear-streaked cheeks, clutched a handkerchief tightly. My son, how could you, she sobbed. This is not how we raised you. Deceiving these women, it's unforgivable. James stood there, his usual suave demeanor crumbled under the weight of public familial disapproval. He tried to speak, to explain, but his father cut him off. You are no longer a part of this family's legacy. Consider yourself without an inheritance, his father declared, his voice cold and final. The room erupted into chaos once again, with guests pulling out their phones, likely capturing the downfall of what was supposed to be my dream wedding. In the weeks that followed, I took James to court. My lawsuit demanded the return of the $50,000 I had foolishly handed over for what was supposed to be our wedding. The evidence was overwhelming, and the judge ruled in my favor, ordering James to repay every penny. His lawful wife wasn't far behind with her legal actions. She sued him for emotional distress, deception, and sought alimony for their daughter. I attended every court session, a bittersweet feeling of vindication accompanying me each time I watched James face the consequences of his actions. Beside him, surprisingly, was Anna, who had chosen to support the man who had nearly destroyed me. One day, outside the courtroom, Anna confronted me. He loves me, Carol. And I love him. We're going to get through this, no matter what you or anyone else thinks. I stared at her, the sister I once loved, now hardly more than a stranger. Love? You call this love? He used us both, Anna. Open your eyes. He's a liar. But he's changed. He'll change for me. You just couldn't see the good in him, Anna retorted, her voice shaky yet defiant. Shaking my head, I felt a cold laugh escape me. Good? There's no good in him, Anna. He's a con artist. And you're just another one of his marks. As I walked away, the weight of everything that had happened pressed down on me. The lies, the betrayal, the court battles, it had all taken a toll. Yet, there was a strange sense of closure. The man who had vowed to love me had shown his true colors, and I had exposed them for the world to see. The final chapter of the saga with James closed not with a bang, but with a ghostly silence as he slipped out of town, leaving a trail of broken promises and debts behind him. He had managed to settle his dues with me and his legal wife, perhaps thinking it would cleanse his slate before he vanished. But the true mess he left was with Anna, my sister, who found herself alone and pregnant. A few weeks after James' disappearance, Anna came to my apartment. It was the first time we'd seen each other since the courthouse drama. She stood there, a shadow of her former fiery self, eyes downcast. Carol, I need help, she began, her voice quivering. He left me, and I'm going to have his baby. I have nothing. The old me, the one who had raised her, might have caved, might have opened the door wide and let her back into my life without a second thought. But too much had happened. You have the apartment, and you'll have the baby. That's a start. You're not on the streets, you're not helpless. But I don't have any money, Carol. The bills, the baby. I need support. I shook my head, the decision firm in my heart even as it ached to see her like this. You made your choice, Anna. You can make another now. Figure it out, like I had to when Mom and Dad died. Like I did when you stabbed me in the back. She sobbed, covering her face with her hands, her body shaking. I never meant to hurt you. I thought I was in love. I really did. Love doesn't lead you to betray your family. Love doesn't make you a spectator at my humiliation. You didn't love me enough to stay away from him, to come clean before everything fell apart. Anna looked up, desperation written all over her face. So, that's it? You're just going to turn me away? Yes, that's it. You're going to walk away from here, and you're going to take care of your child. Alone. Like I took care of you. Turning back into my apartment, I closed the door on her cries, a final, echoing slam that sealed my heart along with it. It was the hardest thing I had ever done, but necessary. Life after that day resumed with a quiet normality I hadn't realized I'd missed. I threw myself back into my work, took up old hobbies I'd neglected, and slowly rebuilt the independence that had always defined me. As for Anna, I heard through family friends that she had her baby, a little girl. They said she was managing, getting by. I hoped sincerely that she found her way, found strength in her role as a mother, strength she hadn't found as a sister.